Apple might finally be getting ready to refresh Apple TV. And yes, people say that every year, but this time the puzzle pieces actually line up. The current Apple TV 4K is aging. The price in the US has climbed to a level that's hard to justify. Apple's next-generation Siri is arriving. And Apple already has the chip in smart home tech to turn a streaming box into something much bigger. The real question isn't, will Apple make a new Apple TV? The real question is what Apple is waiting for, because the hardware sounds close. Yet one key software feature may be holding the entire release back. Before anything else, let's clean up the rumor game. Because the internet keeps turning reporting into confirmed. Mark Gurman has not officially confirmed a new Apple TV. Kuo has not officially confirmed a new Apple TV. Apple is the only company that can confirm it. What we have are credible reports, long-running supply chain predictions, and logical product timing based on Apple's own platform roadmap. That's it. So everything you're about to hear is best understood as likely direction, not guaranteed specs. Now here's why a new Apple TV in 2026 feels more believable than the usual annual guessing. The current model launched in October 2022. That's the third-generation Apple TV 4K, and it still does the basics extremely well for K-streaming, Dolby Vision, HDR 10+, Dolby Atmos, and overall smooth tvOS performance. It comes in two main versions, a Wi-Fi model with 64 GB storage, and a Wi-Fi plus Ethernet model with 128 GB storage that also supports Thread for smart home connectivity. On paper, it's still good enough. But Apple's silicon world doesn't stand still, and for years is a long time in Apple chip terms, especially now that Apple is pushing harder into on-device AI and more advanced graphics. What makes the situation feel urgent is the price. As of July 2026, Apple's US pricing is listed around $199 for the 64 GB Wi-Fi model and $249 for the 128 GB Ethernet model. $249 for a box introduced in 2022 is exactly why more people are suddenly paying attention to the next Apple TV rumor cycle. Because at those prices, Apple TV doesn't compete with streaming sticks. It competes with expectations. A Roku, Fire TV, or Google TV device can do Netflix, YouTube, Disney+, and Prime Video for a fraction of the cost. So Apple can't just ship an Apple TV that loads apps slightly faster and call it a day. The next Apple TV needs a reason to exist, something that makes people say, okay, that's why it costs more, or ideally, that's why it costs less. And that brings us to the first big rumored upgrade, a major processor jump. Multiple reports have connected the next Apple TV to the A17 Pro chip. Yes, the same A17 Pro that debuted in the iPhone 15 Pro generation as Apple's first 3nm iPhone chip. The important part isn't the 3nm bragging rights. It's what the A17 Pro enables on a TV. You get a powerful CPU and GPU, hardware-accelerated ray tracing. And quietly, one of the most streaming-relevant upgrades, a dedicated AV1 video decoder. AV1 sounds boring until you realize it's one of the formats the entire streaming industry is moving toward because it can deliver high-quality video more efficiently. That doesn't magically force Netflix or YouTube to increase bitrate overnight, because streaming services still control how they encode and deliver video. But an AV1 decoder makes a next-gen Apple TV more future-ready, more efficient, and better prepared for the next wave of streaming quality improvements as services shift more of their libraries toward AV1. Now let's talk about the part Apple would love to sell you on. Gaming. Apple has already showcased big-name console-style games on its hardware titles like Resident Evil 4, Death Stranding, and Assassin's Creed Mirage. The A17 Pro's graphics features, including hardware-based ray tracing, are a real step forward from older Apple TV chips. And the moment you put that level of performance in a small box plugged into a 55-inch or 65-inch TV, the experience changes. No battery limits, no thermal throttling from a thin phone body, a big screen, a real controller. A living room setup that finally makes tvOS gaming feel less like a side feature and more like a serious casual console. Will an A17 Pro Apple TV replace a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X? Realistically, no. Dedicated consoles still have deeper game libraries, stronger GPU horsepower, and an ecosystem built specifically around console gaming. But could a next Apple TV become the best family gaming box in the house for people already paying for Apple Arcade? Could it become the easiest way to play high-quality games casually without buying a full console? Absolutely. And that's a lane Apple could dominate if the performance is there and the games follow. There's also a wild card here. Apple has waited long enough that it could choose something newer than the A17 Pro. An A18 class or a 19 class chip isn't impossible. But as of now, a 17 Pro is the most consistent chip rumor tied to this product. Until Apple announces anything, treat the exact processor as a strong rumor, not a final spec. But here's the twist. The processor may not be the real reason the new Apple TV hasn't shipped yet. The bigger reason might be Siri. Apple introduced a dramatically upgraded Siri at WWDC in June 2026, often described as Siri AI in coverage. Apple's pitch is that this isn't the old Siri with a fresh animation. It's a more conversational assistant that understands personal context, can work with what's on your screen, can search across your info, like messages, and can take actions across supported apps. That's the kind of Siri people have wanted for years. And yet, Apple TV wasn't positioned as a headline device for the full Siri AI experience right away. That matters because Gurman's reporting has repeatedly connected Apple's upcoming living room and smart home hardware to Apple's new AI direction. The most logical theory is also the simplest. Apple doesn't want to release new living room hardware until the software experience that makes it feel new is actually ready. Think about what would truly make a new Apple TV feel like a new product. Faster menus. Nice, but forgettable. A slightly smoother animation. Nobody upgrades for that. What makes people upgrade is capability doing things you couldn't do before, or doing them so much better that it changes habits. Now imagine Siri on Apple TV being genuinely useful in the living room. Find a comedy everyone can watch tonight. Under 2 hours, and don't show anything we have to rent. Show me movies like this, but with less violence. Who is that actor? And what else have I watched with him in it? Skip back 20 seconds and turn on subtitles. Pause the show, dim the lights, and show the front door camera. One request. Multiple actions. Natural language. Real context. That's not just a streaming box. That's the beginning of an intelligent TV interface. And if Apple wants Apple TV to become the brain of the living room entertainment, plus smart home, plus voice, control, plus personalized recommendations, Apple needs two things: the right chip to run those experiences smoothly, and the right Siri software to justify the new hardware launch. That's why Siri may be the feature holding everything back. Now let's move to the second major hardware rumor, because it could be even more important than the A17 Pro for everyday use. Apple's own wireless networking chip. Reports suggest a next-gen Apple TV could include an Apple-designed wireless chip, often referred to as an N1 type chip in rumor circles, bringing upgrades like Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, and continued Thread support. That's a big generational leap from the current Apple TV's Wi-Fi 6 and BLUETOOTH 5.0. Will Wi-Fi 7 suddenly make every stream look better? No. Your internet plan still matters, your router still matters, and the streaming app still controls the bitrate. But Wi-Fi 7 can matter a lot for stability, responsiveness, and congestion, especially in modern homes packed with devices. Phones, tablets, laptops, smart TVs, cameras, doorbells, smart lights, HomePods, AirPods, game controllers, even appliances. Everything fights for wireless space. Wi-Fi 7, particularly with compatible routers and access to cleaner spectrum options like 6 GHz, where available, can reduce latency and improve reliability. That means fewer random quality drops, fewer buffering hiccups, and better responsiveness for cloud-based features and gaming. Bluetooth 6 could also improve accessory connections, controllers, headphones, and anything you pair to the Apple TV. And Thread matters because Apple TV is already positioned as a smart home hub for Matter and HomeKit accessories. That detail might be the biggest clue of all. Apple may not be upgrading Apple TV just to be a better streamer. Apple may be upgrading Apple TV to be central to Apple's smart home strategy, where it acts as a stable, always-on hub that ties together HomeKit, Matter, cameras, automations, and voice control, especially if Siri AI becomes the new interface layer for the home. What about the design? Don't expect miracles here. Don't expect Apple to turn Apple TV into a thin stick. Don't expect a dramatic aluminum sculpture or a display on top. Most reporting suggests Apple will keep the familiar small black box, and that's fine. Most people hide it behind the TV anyway. The box doesn't need to look futuristic. It needs to be fast, quiet, stable, and reliable. But there is one design-related wildcard that keeps coming back: a camera. Gurman previously reported that Apple discussed an Apple TV with a built-in camera for FaceTime calls and gesture-based controls. That is not the same as saying the 2026 Apple TV will ship with a camera. It's simply an idea Apple has explored. It would make sense because FaceTime on Apple TV already exists using an iPhone as the camera, and a built-in camera could make calling much more seamless. Walk in, start FaceTime, sit down. No phone propped up under the TV, but a camera in the living room also raises privacy concerns instantly. People will ask, is it always listening, always watching, always analyzing gestures? Is there a physical shutter? Can it be disabled? Until stronger evidence shows up, the camera should be treated as an outside possibility, not a core expectation. The Siri remote could also get refreshed alongside the new box. The current remote is already better than older versions: USB-C, charging, a touch-enabled clickpad, physical volume controls, and iPhone-based locating support. But Apple could still improve the real-world annoyances backlit buttons for dark rooms, a louder Find Me speaker, better precision finding, and yes, anything that reduces the remote's talent for vanishing into couch cushions. Those changes are common sense, but they're not confirmed. So when is the new Apple TV actually coming? Earlier reporting suggested Apple wanted an Apple TV refresh in late 2025, which clearly didn't happen. The latest expectations lean toward a 2026 launch, possibly in the fall, when Apple typically aligns major software updates with new hardware. September would be a logical window, but there is no confirmed event date, no confirmed pre-order date, and no confirmed ship date. Apple could announce it quietly with a press release. Apple could pair it with a HomePod update. Apple could time it near a rumored smart home display. Or Apple could delay it again if Siri AI on the platform isn't ready. That's why the wording matters. Nobody credible should be saying Gurman confirmed the release date. Plans change. This product has already slid past earlier windows. Expectations are not confirmations. Now the price this is where the rumor story gets spicy. And also, where it gets messy, Ming Chi Kuo predicted back in October 2022 that the next Apple TV could become more affordable. And he described sub-$100 pricing as the sweet spot. A $99 Apple TV would be a shockingly competitive product. It would immediately challenge Roku and Amazon on value. It would make Apple TV easier to recommend to almost everyone, not just Apple fans. It would also be a powerful services engine: more Apple Arcade subscriptions, more Apple Music, more Apple Fitness Plus, and more Apple Smart Home adoption. But that prediction is old, and the market has changed. Today's Apple TV pricing sits at $199 and $249. In the US, that makes a sudden drop to $99. Hard to predict confidently. If Apple is adding a much faster chip and next-gen wireless hardware, there are ways Apple could still hit a lower price. Apple could introduce a cheaper Apple TV model with less storage. Apple could reserve premium features like Ethernet, Thread, or higher storage for a more expensive version. Apple could keep the older 2022 model in the lineup at a reduced price, while the new one stays premium. Or Apple could surprise everyone and aggressively price the new model to expand the ecosystem. The truth is simple. Nobody outside Apple knows, so don't say Kuo confirmed a $99 Apple TV. The accurate wording is, Kuo predicted Apple would target a more affordable price, and he called sub-$100 the ideal. That's interesting, but not guaranteed. Which brings us to the practical buying advice. Should you buy the current Apple TV 4K right now? At $199 or $249, it's hard to recommend, unless you need one immediately. The current model is still smooth, still supports modern HDR formats, still delivers Dolby Atmos, still works with FaceTime features, and still functions as a smart home hub. But paying 2026 money for 2022, hardware feels rough when a major chip upgrade and a major wireless upgrade may land later this year. If you already own the 2022 Apple TV 4K, it's still good. Don't upgrade based only on leaks. Wait for Apple to answer the questions that actually matter. Will Siri AI fully work on Apple TV? Will it require the new hardware? Will a faster chip bring more console-quality games to tvOS in a way that feels real? Will Wi-Fi 7 make the experience more stable in busy homes? Will the remote finally get true precision finding? Will Apple add a camera, or keep FaceTime iPhone-based? And most importantly, what will it cost? Because price will decide everything at $99. A new Apple TV could become one of Apple's easiest products to recommend in years. At $149, it could make a lot of sense for households already using iPhone, AirPods, and HomeKit. At $199 or more, Apple will need to prove it's not just a premium streaming box. It's a smarter living room computer that earns its place, and that's the real story. The next Apple TV might look almost identical from the outside, but inside, it could be a meaningful leap. Faster streaming readiness with AV1, much better gaming potential with A17 Pro class graphics, stronger wireless with Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth upgrades, deeper smart home hub capability with Thread and Matter, and if Apple gets it right, the first Apple TV experience built around a truly conversational, context-aware Siri. The processor matters. The wireless upgrade matters. But the main event is what happens when Apple connects your television, your entertainment, your smart home, and Siri AI inside one small black box and finally gives Apple TV a reason to exist. Beyond it streams Netflix,